trade-offs for success. Level up with truth, meaning, trade-offs, perspective.
Paul, how you doing today?
I'm good, Matt. How you doing?
Good. So today, I was just telling you before we got on here, and I think it's going to be a fun topic to discuss. We talk about our four pillars and truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspectives. And recently, more than ever, probably because I've been talking about this recently more than ever, I'm getting this question. All right, I understand truth. I understand meaning. I understand trade-offs. But I don't, how do I gain perspective, basically? And I've gotten that question a handful of times, probably more, in the last couple of weeks. And, thinking today about our conversation, I thought, why don't we talk a little bit about perspective and how does one gain perspective? Because I don't think it's inherent. It's not something you'd actually, give a whole lot of thought to. I know I didn't. And, I thought maybe we could talk about it a little bit. Maybe people could learn something positive from it. So that's the idea today.
I think it's awesome. I talk about it a lot in the classroom, about perspective or the lack of it, because with high school kids, they just haven't experienced as much stuff as other people. So I think that's an important part of perspective. But go ahead and start us off.
I will. And I think you kind of grease the tracks there perfectly. I think so much comes from experience, right? And that's great, because as we get older and as we fail and as we succeed and we live and do the things we do, we're going to gain perspective. I think you got to be very aware and cognizant. If you make a mistake, the only way you can compound it, I guess, is if you don't learn from it. So you gain perspective that way. But to your point, without a lot of experience, it's hard to gain perspective, right? And
go ahead.
No, and so my thought, as I was thinking about how to explain this to people recently, I really came up with three different areas that I think anyone can gain some perspective. But again, I think it's important that people understand that you're going to get more out of it when you give it a lot of thought. What did that mean to me? And the first one is just what we're doing right now. It's conversation, especially conversation with people that maybe you don't agree with on some certain things. You gain a lot from it. And we're in a weird time where people, I think so much has to do with social media, but people don't want to have a conversation, right? You just want to attack them with a tweet or attack them with a direct message or a Facebook message or whatever it is. But you're not going to gain a lot of perspective that way. So that's the first one I have here. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that before we move on.
I love that. I actually had a conversation with somebody the other day with a similar point of view. They're like, are you allowed to disagree with people anymore and then still be friends? And I commented, I think it's what people used to call adulting. It's okay, and people have lost the art to have a conversation, especially even around a family dinner table or a family reunion. Sometimes that's where it gets the worst. And, whether it's the internet and being a keyboard warrior, as they say, when you just comment on people's stuff all the time, or whether it's in person, you use social media and surround yourself with other like-minded people. And you think a conversation goes as follows when people agree with you. And we've lost the skill as a society, I feel, the perspective to converse and think it's still okay.
No, it's crazy. And I've when I go out, my wife and I just got back from traveling, or, and we go to restaurants or we go to a bar or whatever we do. And I'm one of those people. I love sitting down next to someone I've never met and having a conversation. And, my intent in that conversation is never, well, I'm about to tell this person what's right and what's wrong and how things work. It's always, I'd like to learn. So I used to work for a company where I traveled all over the country quite a bit. I may have mentioned this, but I did a lot of that because I was alone, and I gained so much from it because those conversations opened my eyes to things that I never thought before. And and I never took them as a battle. I always took them as a, you know, and I think this is new. It is for me anyway. This idea that I'm trying to win an argument with everyone versus I'm trying to have a conversation that I certainly hope you benefit from. But frankly, I'm trying to benefit from it. Now, certain things I think I know a lot about, and then there's a lot I don't know much about at all. And whatever mix, you know, whatever point of the spectrum it falls in there, I like to have that conversation. And I had a handful just in our recent trip here the last few days. None of them got crazy. All of them were very adulty, as you would put it. So it's given me a little hope, Paul, because so often I see, you know, whether it's the social media stuff or just hearing stories from people about how these conversations can go awry.
Hey, Matt, we just got cut off a minute ago, and you were right in the middle of talking about conversations going awry.
Yeah, which is ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah, I was, but I think what you lost, or what lost in that conversation, was I found that when I'm out there talking to people, and I like to talk about what I consider interesting things, whether it's politics, whether it's economics, you know, not just those things like, you know, who won the football game, which I love those conversations too. But, you know, I found more and more that people are pretty good to talk to, and even if we disagree, and I guess my hope is that there's more of that out there than what I hear about and read about and some of those kinds of things. So, you know, that the conversations I'm having and I look for them. I truly do, because I enjoy it. I found more often than not, almost exclusively, and of course it's how you approach it. I'm finding they're easier to have than I would have otherwise thought. But I love having them because so often, and I do it with my older brother, I think I've mentioned like that. I talk to my sister-in-law a lot. She and I, although we agree on a lot, we like to discuss certain things that are often controversial. She's a teacher. And I find I learn so much. And even topics that I consider myself very knowledgeable about, I often go, hadn't thought about that. So conversation is huge.
Yeah, you know, every time I meet somebody, I try to do two things, and this is just what you were getting at. I try to learn something from them, even if I don't understand it, and then I try to listen more than I talk, and that's been a recent development within the last 6 months. And I find I don't judge. You're an open book. Talk to me. I'm going to see what I can learn. Maybe I implement it. Maybe I change my mind. Maybe I don't. I mean, nothing happens to me if I change my mind.
Right.
I don't. My wisdom teeth don't grow back. You know, I mean, you know, I don't ask what political philosophies they go by. I just listen, and no matter what they're telling me, I develop an understanding for them, and I don't judge. And I just think it's so much better that way. We've lost that art.
Yeah, you said something really interesting there that I try to do too, that I can struggle with, but it's important. And the older I've gotten, the better I've gotten at it. To listen more than you talk, and listen actively, not listen with that, oh, I can't wait to hit them with this knowledge next, or wait till I tell them, you know, this, and the whole time all you're doing is waiting for them to finish so you get your punchline in. I have gotten much better about that as well. And I think it's come with age, and I think it's come with perspective, and I think it's come with confidence and believing in kind of who I am and knowing who I am. But what do you how that is a tough thing for people.
I learned when I was younger. I didn't always implement it till a little while ago, but I was an avid golfer, of course, played in college and afterwards. And everybody sits around afterwards and tells golf stories. What'd you shoot? Oh, 75, but I missed a putt on the last hole, and I hit a tree, and a bird hit my ball on that hole, and they tell their whole story. And the next person isn't even really listening. They're just waiting for a breath so they can tell why they shot what they shot. And one day I tried it as an experiment. People say, hey, Paul, what'd you shoot? I go, 76. Well, what happened? I go, well, I missed the putt for 75. And that's all I said. And they're like, well, what else happened? I said, well, a lot of stuff happened. It's 18 holes. You don't care about it. And then we start talking about other stuff. And people get so excited to plan their response, they don't even think about what the person's saying to them. I've had people repeat the end of my sentence, getting ready. It's like a primer. It's like catching the baton on a relay race. They're running and they've got a hold of the baton and they're finishing my conversation so they can just go full bore. That's not conversation.
Great analogy. I love that.
So,
It's true. It's true though, and we all do it. We're all probably bad at it. I, like you, have tried to get better at it too, but I learned a lot that by doing this, and I think a lot of people can too. So that said, the second thing that I was going to mention for perspective, and it actually kind of piggybacks a little bit. The first one is travel. Traveling is just so important in terms of, one, I mentioned before, I used to meet and I met wonderful people. I was just in Pittsburgh and Austin these last handful of days or whatever. And I met all sorts of interesting, unique people that I got a chance to talk to and gain some perspective from just through conversation and being human beings, but also what I see in the cities, what I get out of the culture, whether it's the people I talk to, the food I eat, the entertainment they like, the way they do things, and they're all, I mean, they're very different. Pittsburgh is very different from Austin, and those are just two places I just happened to be the last 5 days or so. So travel, and I travel all over the country, I travel all over the world, and it has I would say the most, but it's not the most. It's the second biggest thing I've ever done that's impacted my life and changed it for the better.
That's awesome. We're lucky being in upstate New York. We can take a quick ride to one of our lakes and go to one of the breweries or wineries, and the world almost comes to us, doesn't it?
It does.
And we're probably those people that the other people traveling can't wait to talk to, the locals. So yeah. The shoe fits both ways. You just have to be open to it.
Yeah, for sure. We are lucky because we have people, as you know, where we live, the Finger Lakes region, they travel from all over the world. It's a huge tourism area. And if you like to go around to the breweries, wineries, restaurants like you and I both do, it's a great opportunity to run into people and talk to them and hear about their stories and just different perspective. Again, it's exposing, we're coming to a common theme here. It's exposing yourself to different things, different people, again, different ways of life. I mean, you could take the people out of it. The difference between Pittsburgh and the difference between Austin is just the food, the layout, the probably even the politics to some degree, although I didn't get into it, are just very, very different. And that, for me, especially when I travel abroad, it just makes me look at things differently. And I'll tell you, it makes me look at things more humanitarian, in a more humanitarian way. I have a very, I'm very much like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get after it and work hard, and that'll solve all your problems. And although there's a lot of truth to that, there's also not a lot of truth to that in some ways. You know what I mean? That's like, we don't all start on the same base, if you will. And I learned a lot from traveling and seeing how other people live and some of the things, their advantages they have and disadvantages they have. It goes both ways. And, in particularly bigger cities, or like I said, when I travel abroad, because it just opens my eyes to things. And I end up coming back and going, maybe this is a little different than I think about it in my own little bubble. Gets me out of my little bubble, right? And exposes me to things that I otherwise wouldn't be exposed to. And that has been the second most important thing to change how I look at life.
And the bubbles can come in all shapes and sizes. I mean, you obviously do a lot with the students in my program, but they come from all the area high schools within several counties. And by the end of they have barriers based on what district or school they're from. And it's something as silly as sports rivalries. But by the end of the year, they realize because of this travel every day into my classroom, they're the same type of student, and they almost start hanging out with each other more than the people from their regular high school. And that's kind of what you do, whether it's Pittsburgh or Austin, or whether it's us going to the wineries or us traveling another country. Your bubble is your bubble. You have to start by getting outside of it, period.
No, that's a great point. And that will open your eyes to opportunities. It'll open your eyes. It'll also open your eyes to, again, I think I was reading a book recently, and I just sitting here trying to think who wrote it and what it was, but it was touching a little bit on, how it was somewhat historical. So it was going back, and how it was touching on race and some of the challenges with race relations over the years and those kinds of things. It was talking about your exposure to people, and you nailed it with just even your different school districts, or towns, if you will, and the rivalries. Once you bring these people together, all of a sudden you're not so different, whether it's the color of your skin or the color of your eyes or the size of your feet or whatever nonsense it is. It's all nonsense, in my opinion. You get people together, they realize I got a lot more in common with people than not. And you put them in the same room together, especially in yours is a perfect example. All of a sudden, these things that feel big, all of a sudden you realize how small they are, and we're all so similar and we're so alike. We all want to succeed and have our families succeed and live in safe communities and have all these things that we all agree on. And if you get outside your bubble, you'll see that, gosh, we're a lot alike no matter where we go. And that's powerful.
I think it's awesome. So I can't wait to hear what number 3 is, because again, we didn't discuss this ahead of time
at all. Number 3 is actually number 1 in terms of the thing that's had the most impact on my life in terms of perspective. And it's almost like travel, but it's in warp speed, and you can go anywhere in the world at any time, forward or backwards. And it's called reading. And picking up a book and reading a book has done more to change my perspective, and probably every human being out there who reads, than anything else. And again, my book right now, I'm reading a book here called 1776. It's on, I don't know if you've read that one or not. I just happen to have it next to me.
You're talking my language. I read that years ago. I'm finally ahead of you on something.
Did you? I picked it up. It was like on sale, and on my way out of the bookstore, I'm like, oh, cool, because I love history. Boom, I picked that up. I just finished an economics book that you and I have been talking about that you're going to read. You're reading a book, Phil Knight's Shoe Dog, that I'm going to read. The perspective you gain from reading is unmatched.
Yes. So I'll wait till the end. I reorganized these after you said it. I want to see if you agree with me. But the reading, I told you I always struggled finding time to read because, whether I'm actually busy and productive or just busy, sometimes that's part of teaching and coaching or anybody's livelihood, right? But I told the viewers last week I discovered Audible, and I'm banging off 2 books a week now easily. And it's really opened my eyes. I mean, I've always been a pretty well-read person, just being an educator, but the warp speed I can read at now, listen, read, I don't know if that's a thing. It's been so much fun, and it's opened my eyes to get book ideas from you or anybody I come in contact with, whether it's Twitter. I'll even ask people, what are you reading now? And my students will look at me like I've got a second head, but other people give me suggestions. So I 100% agree with this.
Yeah, it is the biggest thing in terms of opening your eyes, providing you perspective. You can look, you may have no means at all. You know what I mean? You may be very, like I was at one point in my life. I didn't have 2 extra nickels to rub together. I just didn't. But I did have a library. I could go to a library and get reading material for free. And now, as long as you have an internet connection, you can get all sorts of things to read or YouTube videos to watch or whatever, all for no cost at all. And you can open the world to yourself. And if you do that, you're going to gain a perspective that, you could have all the degrees in the world. In fact, I've, talked to plenty of people who are medical doctors or this or that, and they're experts in that field. And don't get me wrong, I have all the respect in the world for that. But you want to talk about economics, or you want to talk about history, or the Civil War, or you want to talk about teaching, the latest, greatest in teaching. They may not have any clue, but you can open your eyes to all of that information with the internet, with a library card, with whatever means you have to get it. And there's nothing you can do that better for yourself than read or listen to the books. It's the same thing. There's nothing better.
So we almost could say, reading, we can stick with that, but it's almost basically just consume information.
Yeah. Consume information. You can consume bad information too,
right.
though, right? One of my favorites, Joe Rogan, is who I did not see in Austin, unfortunately. He has said this on his podcast before many times, and he's right. And I don't even think it was him who originally said it, but one of his guests had said, what you put in your mind, or what you're reading, what you're listening to, it's your diet, right? It's your mental diet. You're not going to eat cheeseburgers with extra fries and sodas 3 meals a day for 30 years and not have consequences, right? You wouldn't do that. It's not healthy for you. You certainly want to make sure when you're consuming information, as you put it, you're doing it in a way that's healthy for your mind. So be aware of what you're putting there, and also read things you don't necessarily agree with. Go, hey, look, maybe I'm a very big proponent of this government policy, whatever it is. Well, look at the other side of it and look at it with an open mind, or whatever the topic might be, because it's only going to make you a smarter person, a person who can defend your ideas, and someone who can talk and carry on conversations and have good relationships. And I just think it's the number one most important thing, though, is a read. But like you said, what we're talking about here is consuming information from many sources in order to provide yourself perspective.
I love that. And I was looking for a tweet while you're talking, but I still was listening. Okay. So there's an author I follow. Now that you're new to Twitter, there's an author I follow called Zero Dean. And he just quoted the other day, if you treat your mind like a trash can, don't be surprised when you reach for a thought and all you get is garbage.
There you go. That's a good way to say what Joe Rogan was saying, right? It's perfect.
That might be your first retweet,
I might. What'd you say his name was?
Zero Dean.
Dean, okay.
And well, Matt's new to Twitter because I'm explaining to him, everybody, that there's a side of it that you can get a timeline going with the information that you want to pursue and learn from.
Well, this is perfect, right? This is exactly what we're talking about. I used to be on Twitter. Why did I get off Twitter? Because I hated all the garbage. It was nothing but politics and arguments and a bunch of stuff that I did not want to consume in that fashion, and have it just dumped into my mind constantly. What I want are people like Zero Dean here, who are inspiring, who are going to give me something to make myself a better human being. Even you, of course. So those are the people I want to follow. So this is exactly right. I don't want to fill my mind with garbage. I want to fill it with productive, helpful things. And that's my intent now with Twitter, which you've promised to make come true.
Well, and I'm excited because when we promote this every week before the episodes launch, I get to include you in the tweet now. I'm so excited. I haven't slept for days for different reasons.
Now you can sleep.
Hey, so a big part of perspective then, as we conclude, is being open-minded. Is that part one? I want to get to a part two, but perspective's about being open-minded.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely open-minded.
And then the second part, which I first heard you tell my students earlier in the year that I believe in, you have to be able to compare something to something. And how do you do that? Here's the order of your three things. I think you read, okay, or consume the information that helps you in your thought process, any media form you want. Then you listen, and then you meet other people and learn. So you're basically reading, and then you're having a conversation, and you do that through traveling.
Very well said.
You know, listen, I'm just an organizer. You're the guy with the master thoughts. I'm just the organizer. But, you know, we agreed today to do this because that's when we have conversations with people, perspective is what always comes up.
It
is. The others.
No, it is absolutely. And I'd never sat down and thought, well, how does one gain perspective? You know, I had just talking to people and having them go, well, tell me about perspective. How do I know if I have? And I thought, oh, well, let me think about it. I'm not sure I know the answer to that. So I had to think about it, and I had to discuss it. I have to, like, you know, I do this with so many things in my life. I don't know anything until I've verbalized it, until I've gotten it out. And then I've gone, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense to me now because I've talked about it. Or I don't think I'm thinking of that right, but I have to talk it out or else it's all mush up there.
So I'm going to end with this. I'm going to ask you a question. So what if, in trying to find out this perspective, what if you're wrong? Is there such a thing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're wrong, I find myself to be wrong a lot. I think we're all wrong a lot. And that's half the fun. I think, like you were kind of saying earlier, I don't go into anything or that often into anything. I'm sure I do, where I go, well, this is my idea and this is who I am. This is my identity, right? I mean, there's always times where you can go, oh, I didn't realize that. That economics books I just finished, there were a couple things where I went, man, I really would have said an hour ago that I really believe this to be true, but now I'm not really sure if that's true. I think being wrong is part of the journey. It's part of the fun. And I have a right to be wrong. So do you. So does everyone else. Now, that said, I also have a responsibility to pursue the truth. So it's okay to be wrong, but you better do it in pursuit of the truth. You don't get to be intellectually dishonest in my book. You don't get away with that. In fact, the only negative argument I can think of that I've had in the last year, I was having a wonderful conversation with a person out and about, and it turned into a different topic, and she was, as I told her, you're being intellectually dishonest. That's just not true. And I can prove it to you right here via history. And her intent, in my opinion, was to win the argument. And whereas my intent was to have an interesting conversation to learn about. So being wrong is fine. I'm wrong a lot. Just ask my wife. But intellectual dishonesty for the sake of winning an argument is a different topic. So I had to throw that in there. But you're going to be wrong. It's part of the journey, right? You're going to miss a putt. Maybe you're not going to miss as many as I do, but you're going to miss a putt and you're going to be wrong. The important part is to not be dishonest about either one of them.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Matt, it was great. And everybody, we just discussed perspective in a nutshell.
Yep.
Till next time, Matt.
All right. Thanks. That was fun.
Yep. Bye.